My high school crush treated me in the ER. Then whispered, "Do you remember me?" The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes wasn't the bright hospital lights or the heart monitor beeping beside me. It was a familiar pair of hazel eyes staring into mine with a mixture of shock, concern, and something that looked almost like disbelief. My head throbbed, my body refused to move, and for a brief second I wondered if I was dreaming. Then the woman leaning over me brushed a trembling hand against my bruised cheek and whispered words that froze my heart more than the accident ever could. "Do you remember me?" Time stopped. The emergency room around us continued moving, nurses rushed from bed to bed, doctors called out instructions, machines hummed, stretchers rolled across polished floors, but inside my mind, 20 years disappeared in a single heartbeat. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness has the power to heal broken hearts, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to life. I wish I could tell you that I immediately recognized her. I wish I could say I smiled, called her by name, and everything became perfect in that instant. But life isn't written like fairy tales. Pain blurred my vision, medication clouded my thoughts, and all I could manage was a confused stare. She gave a small smile that somehow carried both hope and heartbreak. It wasn't the smile of someone expecting recognition. It was the smile of someone who had already accepted being forgotten. Then she quietly returned to her work. Her calm hands checked the bandages wrapped around my arm. She adjusted my fore with practiced precision before asking another nurse for fresh gauze. Every movement was confident, gentle, and professional, but every few seconds she glanced back at me, as if searching my face for memories that refused to return. I lay there wondering why this stranger somehow felt painfully familiar. Hours earlier, my day had been completely ordinary. At 40 years old, my life had become predictable. I owned a small construction company that was surviving but never truly thriving. I had spent years rebuilding old houses while quietly accepting that some parts of my own life would probably never be rebuilt. I had never married. There had been relationships, of course. Some ended because I worked too much. Others ended because I never fully opened my heart. The truth I rarely admitted, even to myself, was that a small part of me had remained trapped inside the halls of Lincoln High School. Back then there had been one girl. Emma. She was the kind of person who made every room brighter without even trying. She wasn't the loudest or the most popular student, but people naturally gravitated toward her kindness. While everyone else competed to be noticed, Emma noticed everyone else. She remembered birthdays. She helped struggling classmates. She volunteered after school. She defended kids who were bullied. And somehow she never acted like she was better than anyone. I had loved her silently for nearly 4 years. Every morning I found excuses to walk the same hallway. Every lunch period I hoped she'd sit somewhere nearby. Every school event became another opportunity to admire her from a safe distance. But fear is a powerful prison. I convinced myself she could never possibly like someone as quiet and awkward as me. So I never told her. Graduation arrived. Everyone promised to stay in touch. Life scattered us in different directions. Years became decades. Eventually I convinced myself that chapter of my life had closed forever. Until the truck ran the red light. The crash happened so quickly that I barely remembered it. One moment I was driving home after inspecting a renovation project. The next came twisting metal, exploding glass, unbearable pain, and darkness. Now I was lying in an emergency room while someone who looked remarkably like my first love quietly fought to save my life. Late that evening my memories finally cleared. The nurse returned to check my vitals. As she leaned closer, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Just beneath her left eyebrow was a tiny crescent-shaped scar. My heart skipped. I remembered exactly how she'd gotten it. Sophomore year. Basketball practice. She had accidentally run into the edge of the bleachers while helping another student. Suddenly everything came rushing back. The eyes. The smile. The voice. The scar. Emma? She stopped moving. Slowly she looked up. Tears instantly filled her eyes, but she smiled anyway. You remembered. Those two words somehow carried 20 years of silence. Over the next several days I remained hospitalized with broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a concussion. Emma wasn't assigned to me every shift, but whenever she worked nearby she'd stop for a few minutes to make sure I was comfortable. We talked cautiously at first. Like strangers trying to introduce themselves. Like old friends afraid of saying the wrong thing. Eventually the walls between us began disappearing. She told me she had become an emergency room nurse because of her father. He had died from a sudden heart attack when she was only 17. The nurses who cared for him hadn't been able to save his life, but they had shown extraordinary compassion during his final hours. She wanted to become that source of comfort for other families. I told her about my construction business. About my parents passing away within 3 years of each other. About working too much because staying busy felt easier than feeling lonely. One rainy afternoon she admitted something that completely shattered my understanding of the past. She had known. Not just suspected. Known. She had noticed the way I always looked at her. She had noticed me waiting after chemistry class just to walk down the hallway together. She had noticed every awkward smile and every nervous excuse. Then she quietly confessed something I never expected. She had liked me too. For nearly 4 years. My chest tightened harder than any broken rib ever could. All those years. All those missed opportunities. All because 2 frightened teenagers believed they weren't enough. I laughed. Then I cried. She cried too. Not because we blamed ourselves. But because life can sometimes be heartbreakingly simple. 2 people can spend years loving each other while fear keeps them standing only a few feet apart. After I was discharged, I expected life to return to normal. Instead, Emma called. Not as my nurse. As my friend. We started having coffee. Then dinners. Then long evening walks where conversations lasted longer than the miles we covered. We didn't try pretending 20 years had never happened. Those years mattered. They had shaped us. She had been married once. Her husband had died from cancer 6 years earlier. They had never been able to have children. She spent years caring for him until the very end. After losing him, she poured everything into nursing because helping others became the only way she knew how to survive grief. Listening to her story changed something inside me. My loneliness suddenly seemed less like bad luck and more like a choice. I had spent years protecting myself from rejection. She had spent years surviving unimaginable loss. Yet somehow she still chose kindness every single day. Months passed. One Saturday morning she asked if I wanted to volunteer with her at a community project renovating homes for elderly veterans. Construction was my world. Helping people was hers. Together those worlds fit naturally. Week after week we repaired leaking roofs, rebuilt broken porches, installed wheelchair ramps, painted bedrooms, and fixed homes that families could no longer afford to maintain. The work healed me in ways I never expected. For years I had measured success by contracts, profits, and completed projects. Emma measured success differently. She noticed grateful smiles. Relieved tears. Children laughing in safe homes. Elderly couples sleeping without worrying whether rain would leak through the ceiling. Slowly I began seeing the world through her eyes. One afternoon an elderly veteran pulled us both into a hug after we'd finished rebuilding his front steps. He whispered that people like us restored more than houses. We restored hope. Driving home that evening, I realized something. The greatest construction project of my life wasn't any building I'd ever completed. It was rebuilding my own heart. Exactly 1 year after the accident, Emma asked me to meet her at Lincoln High School. The campus looked smaller than I remembered. The hallways echoed with new voices. Fresh paint covered walls that once held our lockers. We wandered through memories together. The science classroom where we'd secretly admired each other. The library where we'd accidentally reached for the same book. The football field where graduation had quietly ended one chapter before another ever had a chance to begin. She led me to the old oak tree behind the school. I used to eat lunch here, she admitted. I know, I smiled. She laughed. You knew? I parked myself where I could see you almost every day. She shook her head, laughing through tears. We really were ridiculous. We stood beneath that tree as the evening sun painted the sky golden. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Finally I reached into my pocket. Not because I had planned some elaborate proposal. Not because life demanded a perfect moment. But because I had learned something the accident had nearly cost me my chance to understand. Tomorrow isn't promised. Fear steals more dreams than failure ever will. I knelt beneath the same tree where two teenagers had silently loved each other decades earlier. This time I refused to stay silent. I told her she had saved my life twice. Once in the emergency room. And once by teaching me that it is never too late to choose courage over regret. When I asked her to marry me, she didn't answer immediately. Instead she smiled through tears and whispered the very same words that had started everything again. Do you remember me? I smiled back. Now I'll never forget. She said yes. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. There were no luxury venues or celebrity guests. Many of the people attending were patients, nurses, construction workers, veterans, neighbors, and friends whose lives had crossed ours over the years. During the reception, one elderly patient hugged Emma and quietly told her that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they wear scrubs. Later that night, while everyone danced beneath glowing lights, I realized something even more beautiful. Life hadn't given us a second chance because we deserved one more than anyone else. It had simply reminded us that love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it patiently waits behind closed doors, hidden beneath old memories, until the right moment arrives to knock again. If this story touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, leave a comment about the person you never forgot, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories that remind us how powerful love, forgiveness, and second chances can truly be. Before we end, tell us in the comments, have you ever met someone from your past who completely changed your future? We'd love to read your story. As we drove away from the reception, Emma reached over and gently held my hand, the same way she had held it in that emergency room when I didn't even recognize her. The road ahead disappeared into the quiet glow of the evening, full of unknown turns and unexpected destinations. For the first time in decades, I wasn't haunted by the life I could have lived. I was grateful for the life waiting just ahead, because sometimes the greatest miracles don't happen when everything goes according to plan. They happen when fate gives two ordinary people one impossible moment, one whispered question, and one final chance to remember the love that had been waiting for them all along.